So for the precordial electrode placement, right, there are 4 landmarks. Sternum, all right, the midclavicular line, the anterior axillary line, and the mid axillary line. Okay, so let's just draw a dude. Okay. All right, so most of you should have some knowledge of anatomy, right? But for those who don't, or you have a limited knowledge, the sternum, okay, is the breastbone, and it has a joint, right? So this is manubrium and this is the sternum, right? And you also have the clavicles, right, which is your collarbone. So that's what we're talking about, right? So this would be the middle of your collarbone. When we estimate it, would be your midclavicular line, and your armpit, let's look at it kind of from the side. It kind of look like that, right? So let's say this is my arm. So we're saying this would be my anterior axillary line, and then if I kind of go midway in my armpit, that would be the mid axillary line. All right, so that's the basics in terms of landmarks. And you have a first rib here, then a second rib there, and then at the level of this junction, the manubrium and the sternum, that's where the second intercostal space is. So that's how you know where to start counting, because this joint is pretty prominent, right? Let me scroll down. So if I'm looking at somebody's chest sideways, that's how the joint looks, right? So I can press there and then just go to the side, and I'll be able to find the second intercostal space, right? Let me draw a nose. Cool. All right, so let's go back up. So that being said, we're going to simplify this diagram now. So let us say I would find the second intercostal space, right? And I'm going to follow the intercostal spaces down to the fourth space. So let's just draw a sternum. Let's draw a rib. So let's say that's the fourth rib. So 4. This is the fifth rib. All right. 6th rib. So therefore, this is the fourth space, and this is the fifth space. All right. That's all we want to know. So what we're saying now, the first landmark is the sternum, right? So V1 goes here, and V2 goes here. All right. The second landmark is the midclavicular line. So let's draw a little dotted line, and we're saying the clavicle is somewhere up there, right? So in the fifth space, in the midclavicular line, that's where V4 goes. So we skip 1. So then where does V3 go? V3 goes midway diagonally, right, between V2 and V4. So basically, you find V4, right, and then you put V3 right in the middle, okay? And then V5 is in the same fifth space, but at the mid axillary line, all right? And we already told you, my apologies, I misspoke, at the anterior axillary line, and we already said where that is, right? So V5 goes here, and then at the, so that's anterior axillary line. At the mid axillary line, in the same space, is V6. Now, some persons, the most common thing, so what really happens is that the ribs tend to rotate around like that, right? So by convention, once you find V4 in the fifth intercostal space, if the ribs are curving a lot, you don't necessarily have to follow the ribs like that, right? You can just put the electrodes across in a straight line, right? But just ensure that they're at the anterior axillary line and then the mid axillary line. Okay, so most times you'll find that V5, it's fine, right? V5 will still be in the fifth intercostal space, but V6, if you follow the curvature of the rib, would be higher up in the axilla, which is not what you want. So ensure that V6 is in the same plane as V5, right? Just in the mid axillary line. I hope that was clear. So just to review, for this video, we've spoken about the placement of all the electrodes, the 4 limb electrodes and the 6 precordial electrodes, right? So at this time, we're going to go on to speak about leads, how these electrodes are used to form leads.